My name's Vicki. I have a son. He's 23. Heroin is his addiction.
It became apparent to me that there was an issue when he was in high school.
My youngest son is 21 years old and he is my addict. And he started using when he was, well, he says that he started pot in 7th grade.
And I just remember, being at the gym, and my husband called me and said, we have a problem. And he had drug tested Drew, and he tested for opioids. And I'm like, what's an opioid? And he said, heroin. And I just died.
So I found a solution to that issue, and what I did was I yanked him out of Conestoga High School and I dropped him off at Valley Forge Military Academy without his knowledge. And seemingly that went well for about a year.
But when he was 16 years old, he came to me and he told me that he wanted to go to treatment because he started to use painkillers. So within 45 minutes, I was on a plane and he and I went to Texas, and he stayed there for 45 days.
I guess, going through high school and, having run-ins with the law, he had a couple little things which, looking back in retrospect, I probably should have been more on it, but you just think, oh, it's a teenage boy thing. It's nothing. It's part of growing up.
So he stayed there for 45 days, came home, went back to the high school and started drinking and smoking pot again. And I think that to me was the hardest part was, we call this like a once and done thing. I knew that there was no once and done thing for my son because I could just tell his personality.
Things were missing from the house. There were odd hours. There were conspicuous friends.
He changed. He wasn't that sweet, loving child that I brought up. It was a traditional household. We did things together. We did vacations together. We had dinners together. We did all the right things. And it just wasn't enough.
And the thing with our kids and with us being addicts, we don't want to be this way. We have a brain disease. All I wanted him to do was graduate from high school. He graduated from high school and went to school in Florida for a year, and all he did was drink.
Made it through the end of the summer, got him into Roanoke. Of course, the trouble started. He gets pulled over on his way to Roanoke after Christmas vacation, and there's drugs in the car. In comes the legal system. He gets put in jail for the first time, and so this just kept catapulting and just getting, worse. I got introduced to the judicial system. I'd never heard of a bail bondsman before. All of a sudden, I became an expert on, how to wire money and transfer money, and watch my son cry, and it really wasn't his fault. It was a mistake, and he was going to be better, this, that, and the other. Needless to say, that didn't happen.
When he came back from Florida, he really started to getting into the opiates. Stealing from his friends, stealing from us. All my jewelry is gone.
But it was better for me that he was outside the house, so I wasn't thinking so much about where is he, what's he doing, why isn't he answering his phone, why isn't he answering this text, where is he? He came back home and he knew my husband wasn't home, and he knew I was the weakest link. I was the biggest enabler of all, and he knew. And I just remember what everybody was telling me, I'm loving him to death, and stop enabling him, and he's got to go.
I think the straw that broke the camel's back was the time when he was pacing back and forth in our kitchen and saying, Mom, don't worry, they're coming to kill us, but I've got a gun and I'm going to protect you so nothing's going to happen to you.
And his mom, can I come back, live at home? And I told him no. And he said, can I live in the car in the driveway? And I said, no. And he's like, what am I going to do? And I'm like, I don't know. And then he said, maybe I should go to rehab. And I said, that I can help you with. And that's how he got on the road to his recovery.
A week later, I found him a spot at his first rehab. And he went off to his first rehab. After the first rehab, he then went to Texas. When he got to Texas, he found a bus and came back on a bus. He was on the streets for a month and a half until I then sent him to California, Ocean's Recovery. And this just went on and on with some semblance of recovery, 4 months here, 6 months there. Lying, continuing to deal drugs. He ended up back in jail again for 2 weeks. And that's just the way the story was.
At one point, he was in 7 treatment centers in 4 months. So he would go to a treatment center, he would stay for a little bit, find somebody maybe there, and then he would run from the treatment center. So the worst part for me at that point was I would get the phone call, he's gone. And I wouldn't know where my son is. My heart was always racing. I used to say to my sister, my heart just hurts. And there was times where I'd be driving to work and I'd have to pull over on the side of the road because I could not breathe.
And so far it's been 15 months, but going through all this, it's such a traumatic experience that you always feel like this shit's gonna drop because drugs are all over the place.
I was blessed to be sober when my son was at the worst of his addiction, because had I not, it probably would have catapulted me down to a near-death experience.
And I finally realized that I cannot do anything for him. And all the treatment center therapists would say, you have to take care of yourself. You have to take care of yourself. And I thought, oh, they're right. And that is how I got through all that. I just turned to my higher power and I just said, you take my son if you want him to live or if you want him to die. I accept however you want. And I would have to say, ever since that day, I'm a different person.
There was a saying that you can love your child to death, and your child can die in the bedroom. You can't protect them. You just have to hope that there is a God.